Greetings, beloved star child rising. You are in Christina's Corner, and I am Christina. Welcome back to the podcast where I've said before I have the opportunity and the honor to highlight and celebrate individuals who are out here leveraging their skills and their talents to make a beautiful impact on the world. And today, I'm honored to welcome a distinguished attorney and advocate, Antoria Howard. Antoria's career is marked by her unwavering commitment to public service and her dedication to justice. She currently serves as the Assistant Deputy Attorney General for Administration and Management at the Connecticut Office of the Attorney General. That's a mouthful. Where she has held various roles for many years, demonstrating her exceptional leadership and legal expertise. Antoria's passion for equity extends beyond her legal work. She is deeply involved in community engagement and activism and has a long history of supporting and mentoring others. Her insights on navigating complex social issues and her commitment to fostering positive change make her a powerful voice in our community. Please join me in welcoming my friend and my longtime mentor, the remarkable Antoria Howard. Welcome, Antoria.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so good to see you.
Yes, good to
Um,
see you.
I was thinking of before we got together, I was thinking of the time when I got a chance to get up to Connecticut and then you and Daryl took me to that restaurant. I still remember. What was the name of that restaurant?
And a chowder pot, and it's closed.
It is?
It's yeah, it became a dispensary, which those are popping up all over. So, but
Oh, no,
yes,
that was
yes,
so good.
yes,
That was such a
yeah,
fun time.
yes, it was, it was. Yeah.
Um, all right. So, Antoria, in the podcast, I always have six questions. And
Okay.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to double up on a couple of them.
Okay.
Um, but basically, six questions. And I always start off the first one is to ask you to take us back to your childhood. What were you
Hmm.
like as a child? And were there any signs as you were growing up that may have given you an insight that you might get into the legal field or public service?
Sure, yeah. I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Actually, my mom was a teenage mom when she had me. She was 17 when she had me. She eventually, my mom and dad eventually married, but divorced relatively quickly after that. So, most of my life, most of my younger days were with a single parent. Had a really good support system though, aunts and uncles and my grandmother, my grandparents played a vital role in my life. My grandfather was a minister. So I guess I was a PGK, preacher's grandchild, grandkid. So that the church played a really important part of my life. My mom tells a story that she used to watch, and I'm dating myself, the Perry Mason, which is a legal drama with Raymond Burr, I think.
Me
And
too.
she,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was my
okay.
father's favorite show.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And I used to watch it with her, and she always said, I would say, "Oh, I can do that. I'm going to be a lawyer one day." I didn't even know what a lawyer
Ah,
was, and and she would just, pat me on my head and like, "Of course, honey," and having no way of even imagining how we could do that or how I could do that. We lived in the projects at the time, actually the Gilmore homes, where unfortunately the Freddie Gray incident happened. So we grew up in there, West Baltimore. But in eighth grade, I always liked school. So I loved school. I loved reading. I loved math. And my girlfriend laughs at me when I say this, but I would go to summer school because it was boring just to play outside. So, but I would go to summer school just because I loved learning. So I've always loved learning, just a lifelong learner. So in eighth grade, I got an opportunity to attend Oldfield School. They came to Baltimore looking specifically, I think, for African American students. So it was a boarding school. I knew nothing about boarding school, didn't really want to go. But I found out that this was a very good school and this was an opportunity for me to basically to kind of fulfill the goals that I wanted for my life, and also my mom wanted for me, and my grandmother, wanted for me. So went to visit Oldfield School and didn't really like it. Um, but I saw that it was an opportunity to do that, to get out of the school's system that I was in, which wasn't the best, but I didn't know that. I just enjoyed, and continued to learn. So, went to Oldfields and spent formative years there. I think I was 13 when I went there and 17 when I graduated. So those were very and formative, interesting years. Got to meet some very interesting people, some rich people. So, which I was not one of them. But it was an experience, and I don't think I would, I would do it again if I had the opportunity to do it. So, as my mom said, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know why I chose that profession. But, after Oldfields, I went to Mount Holyoke College, which is in Massachusetts, and fell in love with Oldfield, with Mount Holyoke. I'm still pretty active there now, on the Alumni Association, with the Alumni Association. But that those were also years which that the college helped to shape who I am and what my beliefs. And after that, law school. So those were kind of my early years, if you will. So
Thanks for
yeah.
taking us back there.
Mhm.
When you were sharing the story, I had forgotten about that you came from the Gilmore projects. And
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
out of all the places we could have met, we
Mhm.
met at Oldfields, and I used to teach in the Gilmore projects. If you
Really?
remember, I shared that. I thought
Yes.
I shared
Yes.
that with you
Yes.
that
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
before I started working in, at
Hmm.
Oldfields, I had
Hmm.
taught for a couple of years,
Hmm.
and right there in Freddie Gray's
Yeah.
neighborhood. And
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
that brings back memories,
It brings back a lot of memories. 1645 Norman Court. I remember this.
Wow.
Yes. So, but like I said, I think all of my experiences along the way, um, help to shape,
Absolutely.
who I am, and
Absolutely.
what I've done, and how I have tried to live my life and give back. So yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
All right, number two, your career is characterized by significant dedication and achievement. Can you share one or two watershed moments that you feel were pivotal in shaping your professional journey and solidifying your commitment to advocating for justice and equity?
Yeah. Yeah, there was one. It's actually happened at Oldfields. Um, and I was a freshman, so I was 13, 14, and there was a sophomore, a white girl, and we became friends. And so she wanted to go on this bike ride. She was an and is an artist. She's still an artist, and she had found this little craft store or something, not far from Oldfields, but we would ride our bikes, and we had at the time Oldfields had these blazers. I remember it with um, the symbol of the school on it,
Oh,
etc. So she said, "Oh, let's put our blazers on and we just go for this ride. Folks will know we're from Oldfields." Um, and I remember we ride up to this little, looked like a little house, but it was a crafts store. And this woman came to the door and kind of like shut the door. It's like, "Oh, we're closed," or something. And Hillary, my friend, she kind of like looked, and she looked at me, and she turned like beet red. And um, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," very apologetic. And, now that was like, and I have to say, that was like my first experience with racism, because I had grown up, as I said, in the projects. I'd gone to Black schools. All of my teachers were African American, and which now I think back, I love. They taught Black history, which was wonderful in the school. All of them were Black. My church was Black. My neighborhood was Black. So I really didn't have much interaction with white people until I went to Oldfields. So having the door basically slammed in my face, um, I felt so many emotions. I was angry. I went from, I'm at this prestigious school, but I'm still not good enough. So I said to myself, "Okay, I'll show you," But as I said, that was my first time experiencing racism, discrimination. And I said, I don't want anybody to feel what I'm feeling right now, or what I felt during that moment, and that brief incident that happened. So I knew I wanted, like I said, I wanted to pursue law. um, and at that point, it's like, no matter what I do, I'm gonna like show that I'm worthy of, going into this little craft shop, if you will, or worthy of
um,
graduating from this school, worthy of, getting into a good college, and worthy of having this career. And it's interesting that, I did discrimination law in my
wow.
practice. So, um, and I always felt like, even though I represented the state, I always felt like I was in a position to do the right thing. And that's what I loved about practicing and doing public interest law. When there was an incident of discrimination, or even the appearance of discrimination, we were able to put the person in the position that he or she should have been in, provide training for the person that did the wrong, provide money, to rectify the situation. So I always felt like we were in the position to do the right thing. And when I started doing employment law, um, I just felt like, and I saw so much, and this was at Oldfields, it was, the 70s, but here I am in the 2000s doing and seeing some of the same stuff, and you think that we've come so far, but yet it's, I was seeing the same incidents, the same language, the same, and unfortunately, we're seeing that still to this day. But I remember that moment, that particular day, and it's lived with me. And I guess it's been kind of impetus. It's kind of like pushed me to want to um, make things right, if you will. So I think following, having this career, it's kind of come, full circle, and having this, being able to do or represent folks who've been discriminated against is has been rewarding for me. Yeah. Well, mhm,
Sorry that you had to go through that.
mhm. No, I'm not sorry. Don't say sorry.
Yeah,
Like
there's
I
a reason.
said, yeah, there's a reason. And I think there's always a reason for, every incident or everything that happens. So, but I was going to experience it soon or in one way or another. So, um, but that being the first, and I have experienced it, over the course of my career, but having that be the first time, that has stuck with me. And I think has made me or made me determined that I was going to be successful. So, yeah.
I think that, high school, especially a boarding school,
Mhm.
and I've worked at three different boarding
Mhm.
schools now, is such a pivotal time because, you know, with the climate as it is and as it
Mhm.
has been for a while now, you know, um, where racism is such an issue and the
Yeah.
work of equity is so very important. You have
Yes.
students who are coming from, and it just made me think of some conversations, heartfelt conversations I've had with students from Asia, East Asian students,
Yeah.
and then some from the African nations who come here and they don't understand racism because, as you
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
of the way they were raised, but they hear about it all the time. When people talk about United States, racism is in
Mhm.
that conversation.
Right.
And so they talk to me as a director of equity and inclusion about how coming to a boarding school and not really knowing what it is and never having experienced it, every time something comes up as an adolescent that doesn't feel right to them, they're questioning themselves. Is
Yeah.
this racism? Was that
Mhm.
is that person racist? Or, is this what it
Mhm.
feels like? So,
Mhm.
to go through that at that
Mhm.
age,
Mhm.
for 4 years, it's a very transformative and
Yeah.
highly stressful time
Yeah.
if you aren't aware and you weren't raised with it.
Mhm.
And so,
Absolutely.
I meant to say that I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm not because
Yeah.
it stuck
Yeah.
with you
Mhm.
and it, moved you to do what you're doing now,
Mhm.
which is so honorable. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. Thank
Um, and this leads me to the third question, which is, um, a little challenging for me, but I'm going to get through it.
you. Mm.
So we met during my time as director of DEI at your alma mater, and I
Mhm.
am so deeply grateful for your support and your mentorship during that time. You know, Old Fields is such a special place in my heart, for so many reasons. That I love the community, and it have room to grow? Absolutely. Um, but I'll never regret the time that I
Mhm.
spent there and I grew there and the relationships that I've built there.
Right.
And you've also, you said that you continued with the equity work at your undergrad
Mhm.
institution.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
with all that's going on in our country now, Antoria, we're constantly, I don't know about you, but I'm constantly reminded of James Baldwin's words from over 60 years ago when he said, to be Black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage.
Yeah. Yeah.
That comes across my mind so often. Um, like
Mhm.
how could this be going on,
Right.
2025,
Mhm.
So my question is, first part is, what are your thoughts on the current climate in our country?
Mhm.
And the second part is, are you seeing any sparks of innovation
Mhm.
or collective action? I was glad to see Harvard
Mhm.
finally take a
Yes.
stand, and it seems like maybe some others are following suit.
Mhm.
But what are you seeing that could be encouraging?
Yeah, when um, just reminded me of that Baldwin quote, you know, um, January 20th or 21st, I guess, is when, the first executive orders come out about DEI. And DEI to them or to him is synonymous with Black and brown, and yellow with, people of color. Even though white women have benefited from DEI programs the
Absolutely.
most. So I, I understand that quote, the rage and that I felt, um, the anger that I felt. Um, and I'll just say, I thought I was disappointed in this country, um, with the talk of immigration and what he was going to do and DEI and Florida had already banned books and banned all of that, and now we're seeing it across the country. So yeah, there was rage there, and sometimes there still is rage every day. There's something that comes out, an executive order attacking um, a group of people, if you will. But as you stated, um, I've seen some glimmers of resistance, which gives me hope. In my office, my attorney general, who happens to be Asian American, is on the front line, um, along with the attorney generals in New York and California, fighting against these executive orders. And I know one of the first executive orders was birthright citizenship. The Constitution says if you're born in this country, you're a US citizen, and for him to sign an executive order saying that even though you're born in this country, both of your parents have to be born in this country is just, not constitutional. So the some of the attorneys generals across the country have sued, and have gotten temporary injunctions, which means they can't carry through on deporting these kids. But then you see the other day there were three kids. So um, and that kind of, again, that rage, because you're feeling like, how is this legal? How is he above the law? How is he? But there are folks out there fighting. Like I said, the attorney generals across this country are battling. They are battling. Um, and we're seeing some success in our lower courts. There was a glimmer of hope with one ruling by the Supreme Court, where it was 5-4, but that was the majority. So, on an immigration case. So, and now with the colleges, um, he's going after. went after Harvard, Columbia, the named schools, Yale. Now I'm waiting to see what Yale in my state's going to do. But I've seen colleges. I know my alma mater. They've signed on, have come up with statements, supporting Harvard. My alma mater actually is led by an African American woman. Both of my alma maters, actually, my University of Connecticut School of Law has a Black dean. Mount Holyoke College has a Black president, and they're standing up, along with other institutions. So there is hope there. He's going after big law firms. It's basically he's retaliating against law firms that have represented Hillary Clinton or represented the special counsel, and taking away federal contracts, and revoking their right to be on uh, government property, etc. And big law firms are finally starting to step up. So that also gives me hope. Several other big law firms have gotten behind one law firm that is suing, and so that gives me hope that you know we have to fight.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to fight for the next. They said today was his 100th day in office, and they gave, he's got 4,000 more days or whatever. But those 4,000 days, those 4 years, unfortunately, we're gonna have to continue the fight, because in my opinion, he's trying to rewrite history, taking over the Smithsonian, trying to get rid of, various exhibits, or trying to rewrite history. So, and we've got to fight against that. And we can't lose hope. We just can't roll over. We can't, we have to fight. So, so I try not to be, am I angry? Yeah. Is there that rage there? Yeah, still. But there's also hope. And when I see others stepping up to the plate, others trying to do something, you may not think that you're going to the Capitol and holding up a sign is anything. I'm just a little person here, but it does matter. So we have to continue, I think, continue that fight. So.
Thank you. I'm glad you shared some of that. Um, because if you listen to what's going on, in the
Mhm.
news,
Mhm.
it just seems like people are just rolling over.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I'm glad to hear that more things are happening and we know about.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot's happening, and that you don't hear about behind the scenes, the legal fights.
yeah,
You don't hear about our office. We've been swamped. Um, but it's very important to my boss that we do fight. Some of our attorneys have been working around the clock, because this is work we didn't plan on. You know,
right,
this
right.
we didn't plan on having to file all these lawsuits, to try to maintain the rights of people, or stop people from being laid off, or stop the Department of Education from being demolished. Um, so, but I have to give credit to our staff. They have been remarkable. And we're living in at least in Connecticut, we're living under a hiring freeze. We can't even hire more staff because we don't know what's going to happen with the federal funding, which trickles down to the state. So we can't hire people, but people are working overtime, getting the work done. So I just have to applaud, not only my office, but attorneys general offices across the country that are doing this work. So, yeah.
Thank you. So building on that, when you think about, Antoria, the power of Black joy
Mm.
and prioritizing self-care, how do you balance your life and navigate your journey with joy? What practices or philosophies guide you in maintaining your well-being and your resilience?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's so important to um, maintain, um, for me, a sense of peace. Um, this world is going on and it's crazy, but I try, I do watch the news. I do because I want to stay informed, but there comes a point in time where I have to turn it off. If I feel that rage bubbling up, or I have to turn it on. And how do I get my peace back? How do I get my joy back? Things that are important to me. I meditate a lot, I pray a lot, um, and I try to do things that give me enjoyment, and give me that joy, that peace. Getting a massage,
Yeah.
you know. Last weekend, and I said to my husband, "Oh, okay, I'll be back." He goes, "Again, you're going?" I said, "I need it." I need it. Okay, so but I found that if I turn off the TV, and music is important to me too. I,
Hmm.
I I sing in my church, and I just love music, all kinds of music. And I turn on some music, and sometimes if I've had a particularly rough day, I'll just come upstairs and turn on the music and just meditate, and just, yeah, and you have to let it go. You can't live with it because some of the stuff is just so heavy that you have to learn. And it took me a minute. It took me a while, maybe because I'm getting older or whatever. You have to learn to let go. And I want to, no matter what's going on, I want to maintain my peace. It's important to me. It's important to my family. I'm no good being walking around being angry about the president and what's going on. Um, so I need to find a way to keep that peace so I can be a mother and a wife and a daughter, and a niece and a great aunt now, to
Congratulations.
thank you to people that are important to me. So I read. I read. Went to the movies last week for the first time in a long time. My girlfriend grabbed me and said, "Let's just go," and that was fun. So you have to find ways to kind of distance yourself, because after that massage or after that movie or after that meditation, after that prayer, I find that I am restored, so to speak. And it gives me energy to, I know there's going to be another fight, a next fight. So that gives me energy to continue or to take on the next battle that has to come. And then after that battle, then hey, let's go back and do something for me. But that's what brings me joy, is just, I think, pampering myself, um, being there with my family, for my family, doing things with my family and friends. Um, so,
And
but
you chose your life partner now. I'm gonna get some points with my boy Daryl. You
yeah,
chose a good life partner because he likes to laugh. He likes to keep it
yes,
light and have
yes,
fun, and that's really
absolutely.
important.
Yes, he does. He keeps me laughing, and I'll look at him
Mhm.
sometimes and try not to laugh. And I'm like, what did you just say? so, so, but he does. Yeah. We've been married. It'll be 40 years this year in August,
Oh,
and he's just yeah. He's a good partner, and he's just all around good guy and funny.
well,
But he's been
congratulations
there.
on
Yeah.
40 years. That's,
Yes.
you know, that's definitely soulmate action there.
Yes. Mm.
Okay. Number five.
Mhm.
We touched on this a little bit, but I want to talk about the importance of representation.
Mm.
Um, so, in equity work and education, representation is so very important to any institution. So, can you talk a little bit about why representation is important in the work that you do?
Oh, wow. I think representation matters in all fields. I know it's
Mhm.
definitely important in education. I always say, we definitely need more Black male teachers, in our schools. But representation is in the legal field is very important. When I first started, brand new baby lawyer, if you will, and I'd walk into a hearing or walk into a courtroom, I would be one of, out of, I would say, 50 people in that courtroom, one of three women and the only Black person in that courtroom. Um, that has improved, but not much. Um, but the seeing, I think, a Black woman in the role that I am, um, has been, people are surprised, when they see me. They'll walk into a room and they're like, oh my gosh, and that matters to people. It's like, well, and I always say, if I did it, you can do this. And that's why mentoring, training is so important to me, because I just want, I will push you, and people are like, we want to stand on your shoulders, absolutely, but I'm gonna be pushing you. So, and seeing others in these types of roles. One of my good friends was appointed by President Biden to be the U.S. Attorney for the state of Connecticut, Black woman. And seeing that, and in her role, she developed such wonderful relationships with the police officers in the community, and even so, community folks started, it's like, wait a minute, the police are not that bad, and because she established that relationship, they respected her, the community respected her, both sides respected her. And because she was a Black woman, because she was from the community, that mattered again. So having people of color, if you will, in these roles are so important, especially to our young people. In my role now, I have a big role in hiring attorneys that come into our office. So I'm always looking for the best and the brightest. And, if the best and the brightest happen to be African American, Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQ, we're going to hire that person. And it really, when I come up, we do a lot of, well, since COVID, we've done some interviews on Zoom. And when I come on the screen, they're like, oh, wow, and it's important. And that's why I really try to um, get more of us involved in the legal field, especially, um, and get not just in my office, but in other law firms across the state of Connecticut or other state agencies that need lawyers. So I'm constantly, trying to get us involved. So, but it does matter. It really does, because when people see me, when I was a young attorney, there weren't many of us. And I did have mentors that didn't necessarily look like me, but they were empathetic and they helped me. So having a mentor that looks like you, of course, I think that gives you an advantage because they can understand what you've gone through, what you're going through, was that discrimination? Was that, those types of things. But also having a mentor that, one of my biggest mentors was a white man who pushed me and pushed me to do certain big cases, pushed me in the office, pushed me, and we're still friends to this day, and he's been wonderful. So, but finding that, I think there are people who are, um, supportive of the cause and will be there. But it's also nice to have a person of color in and seeing that in a particular role is really important because it gives you confidence that they did it, so I can do it. So, yeah.
And having been in education for so many years, I do see um, a small step forward. And I think a lot of it has to do with the push of the equity work that they're now
Yes.
trying to do away with, but
Yeah.
helping to understand, why, this perspective of why can't they just be good teachers? Why do we have to have,
Yeah.
teachers of color not really understanding, but, you know, with the help of the equity work and more of the focus
Mhm.
on co-creating environments with
Mhm.
students and
Yes.
actively listening
Yes.
to why it's important,
Hmm.
has
Hmm.
kind of pushed us forward a little bit, even though we're trying to go backwards now. But
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's key, understanding why it's important. And you do have folks out there who do understand and are
mhm,
supportive in what we're trying to do because we need those folks,
yeah.
So um yeah. Mhm,
Okay, last question.
mhm,
So you've demonstrated a long-standing commitment to community engagement and activism, including your work with Farmington Valley and the Alumni Association, as you said, of Mount Holyoke College.
mhm.
What advice, number one, what advice do you have for our listeners on how to get involved in work that aligns with their values and contributes to positive change in their communities? One.
Mhm.
And number two, I heard you're retiring soon. And so, what are your next steps and what are you excited about for the future?
Sure. Um, I think finding something that you're passionate about. You mentioned having something that aligns with your beliefs. Um, and what was important to me about Farmington Valley, that's an ARC program. I have a son with special needs. We have a son with special needs. He was now an adult. And growing up in the school system and and having to fight for certain rights and certain things, that was our son, so we fought, and so being involved with Farmington Valley, we saw another opportunity to not only help our son, um and we were passionate about that, but also to help other disabled, intellectually disabled, and physically disabled young adults, um, you know, strive to do things to be better and not treat them, put them in a corner somewhere, and they're not important. So my husband and I became very involved in that. I sat on the board because it was important to us. It was a passion, and we it was important to our son that and important that we wanted him to be his best. And now he's thriving, and he no longer lives with us, thank goodness. No, he lives on by himself. But so but again, I think you find something that you're passionate about, something that's important to you, and you may not want to sit on a board, or you may, but do small things, go volunteer, and help out, and and that's actually how we started in just volunteering and helping out. Same with Mount Holyoke. Again, those were formative years for me in college, and because it's a predominantly white institution, it's still very important for me to keep a connection there, especially with the it's not called Afro AM, it's called something else, but the organization there, where they're Black and Brown students. So that's important to me, to keep that connection and to um, kind of serve again as an example that, hey, I made it, through 4 years of this college, you can make it. And to just still be involved in that, because I am, like I said, I love mentoring, I love training, and that leads into what I will be doing in my next phase.
Okay.
So for another month, I will be at the Attorney General's office for another month. After that, I've been eligible for retirement for a while, but I just wasn't ready to retire because I didn't want to retire and sit on a couch and do nothing. That's just not me. I mean, I still have my community stuff, but I still, wanted something else. So, an opportunity kind of came along. I mentioned the National Association of Attorneys General. I had a connection with them, as we do, being in the Attorney General's office. And an opportunity came along to become what's called a program counsel there, where I will be teaching, traveling and teaching, serving as an instructor to attorneys and paralegals and support staff in attorney general's offices across the country and the territories. Like I said, I love training, I love mentoring young people, if you will, and not so young people. So that dropped into my lap, and so I'll be doing that starting in June. I get the opportunity to. Their main office is in DC, so I get to visit DC, but I get to work from home, and then I also get to travel. So, which is wonderful. So I will be retiring from one job and moving to another, but a lot less stress than what I'm doing now, and a lot more enjoyment. And so I get to do what I really concentrate on, what I really like to do. So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. You're an amazing human being, and you
Oh,
deserve you deserve the world,
oh,
Antoria.
well, thank
So
you. Thank
thank
you.
you for
Mm.
being you.
Oh,
Appreciate it, and thank you for giving me time to
of
have this
course,
conversation. This was such a great conversation. I'm
of
so
course.
glad I started this podcast because I get to have, concentrated, deep conversations with people
Mhm.
that I really admire. I
Mm.
count you as one of those, a
Oh,
lifetime
well,
friend.
thank
So
you. And I admire you. So keep
thank
up
you.
what you're doing. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And in your travels, perhaps we can meet up
Yes,
again. We'll find another
Absolutely.
seafood place.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, for those who are listening, thanks for tuning in to yet another great podcast episode. And love and light to you. And we'll see you on the next Christina's Corner episode. Have a good day.